Alright, you better start talking. I know that you know. You have to know. Tell me what the One Piece is. Tell me what Roger's treasure is. Tell me! Oh, so you're gonna be silent? You're not gonna spill the beans? You think I'm afraid of 7 years bad luck? I'll show you! I showed that mirror who's boss. Well, that was a complete dud. I went to the whole trouble of asking our inner soul to see if it knew what the One Piece is. But can you believe it? It said, dude, if you don't know, what makes you think your inner soul would? Please. That was probably the dumbest opening I've ever done. So, feel free to leave a comment down below saying why that was really the dumbest opening you've ever seen. But, hey, it's something. And while I'm on the topic of that, it's like that, before I get into like the full official videos like that, that actually got me thinking of a very unique thing. It's like that for the ability itself for the glass fruit or the Nami or whatever at this point. I mean, I have so many names for it at this point to where, logically speaking, I feel like I just say something so we can get on with it. But one idea that you think could be really, really interesting is the whole idea of what I just said with the 7 years bad luck. So, as you're very familiar with, if you're familiar with the whole myths like that, if you break a mirror, it's 7 years bad luck, okay? Not to mention, I did state one of the abilities or transformations would basically turn the user's body into like a mirror-like state, which basically reflects any individual who sees their reflection upon that person. So imagine a scenario to where, say like, the body breaks, like someone breaks the body of, say like Nami, who has the devil friends like that, they break the body, and then all of a sudden they get 7 years bad luck, which, for every piece of the mirror they break, oh, wait, hold on, you know what, 7 years bad luck, no, I'm sorry, no, this is Nami we're talking about. It won't be 7 years bad luck, it'll be 73 years bad luck. Oh man, 73 years bad luck. I mean, that's terrible in itself like that. And just imagine the scenario of how insanely it would be inside that if someone actually kept breaking every piece of the mirror inside that. So, say for instance, someone broke the mirror inside that, or Nami's glass body to the point where they broke it like a million times into like a bajillion pieces. It's like, and then you times that by 73. It's like, oh man, you gotta feel bad for the person. You really do. You gotta really feel bad for the person. Hey everybody, my name is Clif and I'm back for a brand new video. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get into it. Alright. So, once again, this will be another Moon, Glass, Nami video once again. Which was kind of obvious with how I just opened the video. But that's aside from the point. Okay. So, what am I actually doing in this video necessarily, alright? Well, to basically sum it up, it might be easier if I actually do this, if I actually pinpoint to a recommendation like that. Because the idea of this sort of comes from another YouTuber's video that got me really thinking of how much I should actually look into something to see if there's any vital connections and understandings, okay? So, is anyone out there familiar with the Japanese YouTuber Uteron, okay? Well, the reason why I'm bringing this up here is because Uteron, a couple weeks ago, he actually made a video why he basically detailed why rubber equals the sun, alright? And I would recommend people go check out that video. So it's a very interesting video. It's very unique to see how he basically pinpointed to like the inspirations like rubber connected to any part of the sun, whatever it may be, whether it be like a word connecting to dawn, morning, sunlight, anything in general, even if it's just light in general, anything to really reflect on that notion. And he basically sort of delves into that. Okay, now I might be adding a few more touches on topic there and like that. I can't necessarily remember every pinpoint of the videos like that, but it is a very interesting video, and I would recommend people go check it out. And if you want to, there will be a link to it down below and like that. But so that really got me thinking of like really looking into it and seeing if there's any real connection I can draw into the moon and why I think glass can make the perfect sense for it. Okay. Now, whether or not this would technically be the case is still up to standards. As I mentioned before, or Oda's the one telling a story. So, and at this point in time, it's probably too late to even expect to see a moon glass delphins like that. But hey, in all fairness, I don't think we should count anything out until officially One Piece ends. I mean, because with the way Oda does his story, I feel like at this point in time, you really shouldn't count anything out until the final chapter has officially been written, has officially been published. I mean, and I mean that literally, right? I feel like everyone should actually agree on that, okay? But let's get into the topic and say it, okay? So, I think the best way to start off with the videos like that is to actually mention something from Euron's video. Now, I'm not going to do like a big deep dive and like that, go over everything, right? But there's one thing I want to actually bring into the topic of it to sort of lead into what I'm going to discuss into like this video necessary, all right? So let's get into it, all right? So something that I actually want to mention here and like that I want to actually bring over is this. So in one thing that Euron mentioned in his video, why rubber can be connected to the sun, is because of this, all right? So let's bring up the Mesoamerican ball game, okay? So the Mesoamerican ball game, all right, it is a game that is played by the pre-Columbian people of the ancient Mesoamerican since 1650 BC, okay? Now, the reason why he sort of brings up the inspiration for the sun, or the connection to rubber and the sun, is because of the ball that was played during the Mesoamerican ball game, okay? So this ball was sort of like a black rubber ball, okay? And these rubber balls, all right, they were made from the latex of the rubber tree known as the Castilla elastica, okay? And by mixing it with the juice of the Impomea alba, which you might have a better name known as moonflower, okay? We're sort of getting into something here, okay? Which is a species in morning glory, okay? And that's sort of like the connection that he makes with the sun, the fact that the moonflower is a species in morning glory. Morning as in, you know, like the early morning sun, like the earliest, like the sort of like coming out of the dawn. So once the dawn rises, you're now in the early morning. The sun is rising, okay? So that's basically a connection there, okay? But what am I wanting to bring the connection here, okay? Well, the fact that this basically states that the species itself comes from the Impomea alba, which is the moonflower, but it's something to do with the morning glory part, okay? So not the morning part, but the glory part, right? So let's move into the glory aspect, okay? All right, so I think the best thing to really start off with this is Nami and Vivi, okay? So we all know how Vivi takes inspiration from her kingdom, takes inspiration from Egypt, and like that. Even Vivi herself takes inspiration from an Egyptian queen in real life history. Okay, so Vivi's family name is the Nefertari family. Okay, and there was a queen named Nefertari. Okay, Nefertari was an Egyptian queen during the 19th century dynasty of Egypt. Right, known during the Ramesside dynasty. Right. She is obviously one of the best-known Egyptian queens, along with others like Nefertiti and Cleopatra, okay? And I actually made a video about a couple months back where I basically laid out the possibility that Nami's family name, maybe she could have ties to Egypt as well. Maybe there could be some kind of inspiration to Egypt as well for her, or in some regards, okay? Now, whether or not that's what Oda's going to do, we'll have to leave it up to chance. But I thought it could be very interesting. And the name that I chose that I think could be best to represent Nami in this regards was Cleopatra. I felt like Cleopatra could be the best one in that case. Now, whether or not it be someone else would have to be left up to standards to see if that's what Oda's going to do. But I feel like Cleopatra was probably the best regards, okay? But let's go over Cleopatra, because there's something I want to mention here, okay? So, Cleopatra, just to clarify who she was, right? She was queen of the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt from 31 to 30 BC, and its last active ruler, okay? Now, there are some interesting things put here, right? So, Cleopatra's name, right? When you actually look up the meaning of her name, Cleopatra's name actually means glory of her father, okay? And that's the thing I want to point out here, is the connection to glory itself, right? So, morning glory, and then you have Cleopatra's name, which basically derives from glory, which also combines with the name of like her father, glory of her father. Now, we don't know Nami's true father and that. I made recommendations that it could probably be Shiki. Some people have selected Rocks. Whoever her father is, we'll have to wait to see. You know, at this point in time, I wouldn't be against it being Shiki, especially since you can draw like two parallels with the sun. The fact that Shiki, the upside golden lion, gold is sort of like the metal of the sun, and lion is represented as the animal of the sun. And it just kind of makes sense in that regards. But hey, whoever Oda chooses, I'll go with it wherever he chooses. Okay. However, you could also state that Nami being glory of her father could also be represented in Genzo himself and stuff like that. It just seems to like really work. It doesn't seem to draw any parallels that it shouldn't work. So, in my opinion, I feel like it could work in that regards as well. All right. But let's continue on. So another interesting thing here is that Cleopatra actually adopted the title Thea, all right, which actually means goddess. Now, I should clarify here that Thea, while this does mean goddess, it should not be confused with the actual goddess Thea. Okay, so there are two translations of Thea. Right, so you have this one, which means goddess, and then you have this one, which actually means sight and brilliance. All right, so one actually refers to a word for goddess, while the other one refers to a goddess whose name is Thea, which basically translate into sight and brilliance, okay? And it's an interesting point out here is that Thea, the goddess Thea herself, is the mother of Helios the sun, Selene the moon, and Eos the dawn, alright? These three things are very core elements to the One Piece series itself, right? They're very inspirational things that Oda has been telling within the story, okay? So we obviously have the sun being a very good representative of currently right now in the One Piece manga. We also have the moon, which is very tied to many things and still mystery on itself that we are still wondering about. And even the dawn, which so many people are actually looking forward to and having the dawn rise once again. Here's another thing on Glory I want to mention that I think would be very interesting, okay? So, does everyone remember the color spread Weather Queen, things like that, where Oda drew a bunch of One Piece female characters all during like a summer beach break and stuff like that, going down like a waterfall or something like that? Well, the thing I want to point out here is Nami's shirt and stuff like that. So her shirt says Weather Queen, but it's not the Weather Queen title I want to focus on. It's the ring around it, okay? Which actually got me thinking and stuff like that, you know, this thing could actually be very comparable to a Glory itself. Now, whether or not you want to actually see it that way, it's up to you to basically whether or not you actually think it could be possible. But I think there could be some resemblance in it, okay? So let me explain what a Glory is, okay? So a Glory is an optical phenomenon resembling a halo around the shadow of the observer's head caused by sunlight, or more rarely moonlight, interacting with tiny water droplets that comprise a mist or clouds, okay? Now, sometimes these Glory things can actually be sometimes confused with like rainbow rings and stuff like that, but they're kind of different from rainbow rings, but they do have like some similarities in the measures of like how they are presented and stuff like that, okay? So I just want to bring that up. And while I'm on the topic of like rainbows like that, I might as well just mention this for the sake of it, okay? So we all know that very well that Elbaf is going to be the next arc for One Piece, right? One Egghead is basically concluding, and we're obviously going to go to Elbaf, okay? And some ideas that people are presenting here is that we might actually get to see like an inspiration of the Bifrost, okay? So the Bifrost in Norse mythology and stuff like that is a burning rainbow that connects, that reaches between Midgard, Earth, and Asgard, the realm of the gods, okay? So maybe something like this could actually occur in Elbaf itself. We might actually get something like this, all right? Which actually be very interesting thing, okay? So, but whether or not that'll actually be the case, we'll have to wait to see, okay? All right, I think I'll point this out and stuff like that, okay? So let's look at chapter 671, alright? So chapter 671 is titled Gasu Gasu no Mi, alright? And the thing I want to mention here is that Oda, there was actually a reader request where someone actually asked Oda to draw Chopper pulling a pumpkin wagon for Nami Dorella, which is actually an inspiration or basically a play on the Cinderella story and stuff like that, okay? Or basically the glass slipper story, okay? And the reason why I'm bringing this up here is because, as we can see, Oda, like, I should heavily mention this before, and I mentioned this before. Yes, reader requests are very acceptable for some people to believe because it is a person asking Oda to draw something, and that is true. However, it is how Oda actually draws it that's actually the most important thing, okay? So, take for instance, like, you know, I asked Oda to draw, hey, Oda, draw Nami and Robin skiing and stuff like that, okay? Okay, down, yeah, draw Nami and Robin skiing and like that while being pulled by the thing, okay? That's what I asked him to draw, okay? And he draws that, but it's actually in how he draws it that's the most important thing, alright? So imagine, like, you know, I just say draw that, but yet I don't actually tell him, like, what color skis, or like, or I don't basically state, hey, Oda, draw, like, a bird flying around like that, or like, draw something, right? You know, you basically just ask him something, but yet Oda might actually throw something in there, or he might draw something in a very interesting way. It's like, okay, I wasn't expecting it to turn out like that, but hey, that still works. And when you look at the color page itself, the color, the reader request, you actually see that Oda basically heavily enhanced the actual glass slipper, or as it was like thrown off, like literally Nami had just thrown it off and like that. And yet you see you see basically in front and center, or right next to the moon, alright? It's literally like right next to the moon, okay? So that's basically how it basically is, okay? Now, another thing to point out here is that if you actually take the title of the chapter, Gasu, and if you separate Gasu, which means gas, if you actually separate that word, Ga and Su, and you put a Ra in the middle of it, you get Garasu, which actually becomes glass, alright? Which I thought could be very interesting here, and that's probably why Oda chose to have the reader request, or this reader request, done on this chapter, because of that, okay? Alright. here's something I think could be very interesting inside that, okay? So one idea we might be able to look into is sea glass, okay? Which can also be known as mermaid's tears, okay? So mermaid's tears is a term used in folklore and legend that describes sea glass reflecting a mermaid's beauty. The myth of the mermaid's tears is often stated that a mermaid fell in love with the ship's captain. Mermaids who were forbidden from interfering with human affairs, this mermaid used her powers to calm the storm and save the captain's life. This then resulted in the mermaid being banished to the deepest part of the ocean for all eternity. And something interesting that I came across is that sea glass colors red and orange are rarer and more valuable than others. Now, whether or not that's actually true inside that was just basically what I found when I was looking this up. Alright. Maybe it might be best if we go over glass making itself, right? We're talking about glass, but we haven't really delved into anything like officially glass in the sense, okay? So let's go over some things glass, okay? So glass making itself actually dates back to at least 3,600 years, okay? Archaeological evidence actually suggests that the first true glass was made in places like coastal Syria, Mesopotamia, or even Egypt. Now, another thing to point out here on the Mesopotamia is that when you actually look it up, it's basically described as being the oldest known civilization in history, alright? Now, whether or not that's actually going to be true, but right now it currently seems to be like the leading factor in being the oldest known civilization and things like that. Now, the current Mesopotamia isn't actually around no more. It's actually, so the current Mesopotamia would actually be in the location of where Iraq would be right now, okay? But I thought that could be very interesting, and that, who knows, like, maybe Mesopotamia could have some parallels or draws to, like, the ancient kingdom itself, or basically, like, the Great Kingdom, alright? So, whether or not that's going to be the case, we'll have to wait and see, but I thought it would be very interesting to point that out. Alright, so here's something to really go over, okay? So, now, according to some famous authors and like that, who actually, you know, traveled the world during, like, centuries ago and like that, one person I want to mention here is Pliny the Elder, who was a Roman author and commander of the early Roman Empire, okay? So he basically states that Phoenician traders were the first to stumble upon glass manufacturing techniques at the site of the Belus River. Now, when you look up the Belus River and like that, you actually, it sort of details that the name itself actually comes from Baal. And this is one connection we can draw with Nami here, is because when you look at Baal, Baal is basically described as being the god of, like, weather, rain, lightning, fertility, and like that, which is a very interesting connection in itself, right? So that's one very unique connection here we can draw on that, at where the Belus River, or where it's basically described, is that it's one of the many places that feature or describe where glass manufacturing techniques were basically introduced, and yet the name of the river itself, which comes from the inspiration of a god named Baal, who was god of fertility, rain, and all that kind of stuff, which is a very unique connection in itself. Not a very like side-by-side connection and it's like that, but you look for something, you can find something to connect to it, which is something to really look into. Here's something we can discuss, alright? So maybe it might be best to actually go over some really connections why rubber and glass just makes sense for, like, the two gods in this nature, alright? And there's two things I want to point out here, alright? So, well, a couple of things, more than two, obviously. So first thing is this. So glass transition, alright? So what is the glass transition, alright? The glass transition is the gradual and reversible transition of amorphous materials from a hard and relatively brittle glassy state into a viscous or rubbery state as the temperature is increased, alright? So, what's also discussed the possibility of flexible glass, alright? Flexible glass is an alleged lost invention from the time of the reign of the Tiberius Caesar, right? And finally, the 5 balls of life, right? Is an analogy that compares different aspects of life to balls that are rubber and glass. The idea of this theory was first spoken by Brian Dyson, who was a former CEO of Coca-Cola. It's believed that 5 things that we juggle in life, with the balls representing rubber and glass. The rubber ball represents only work. However, the glass ball is basically stated to represent health, family, friends, and spirit, okay? So it's basically stated that if you drop the rubber ball, it will bounce back. But if you drop the glass ball, it will break and shatter, and it cannot be repaired. So that's just basically the idea of it like that, okay? Now, yes, some people would probably point out like that is like, that's, well, I can't exactly just say how to describe it, but I just thought it would be very interesting to actually just bring that up, just for like a general connection to rubber and glass. Maybe, so for the next part, I'll actually go over some like natural glass itself, alright? So natural glass can occur in many different ways and like that, but maybe it'd be very interesting if I bring up 2 unique things, or a couple of unique things, okay? So natural glass can occur naturally from volcanic eruptions and lightning strikes, okay? These can include obsidian, which is naturally occurring volcanic glass formed when lava cools rapidly, or volbrite, alright, okay, aka fossilized lightning. are natural tubes, clumps, or masses of vitrified or fused soil, sand, rocks, and forms when lightning discharges into the ground, okay? So there have actually been discoveries of glass actually being on the moon, it's like that. So scientists, NASA scientists and all that kind of stuff, of even cultures around the world have actually discovered glass on the moon. China has discovered glass on the moon, it's like that, which is a very interesting thing in itself, okay? So glass on the moon has actually been discovered, right? Discoveries have been made by scientists that have discovered the glass on the moon. Tiny glass spheroids riddled the lunar regolith, okay? And the way this is basically described is sort of like this. So, so what it's basically sort of like is stating here, right, is that an example is the glass spheroliths, right, also known as impact glasses, or microtechites, form when meteorites smash into the moon at 10 to 100 thousandths of miles per hour, heating the silicate minerals, okay? So here's something else to go over, right? So I mentioned before in one of my previous videos that, you know, I could see the ideas of each of these Delph fruits or each of these gods representing a part of the aspect of like the Haki itself. So I basically stated that I could see the whole idea of Sankan Nika representing the whole Conqueror's Haki aspect, right? And I could see the idea of like the moon goddess being the representation of observation itself. And one idea that I thought could be very interesting here is to look at some type of like observation thing or something to like really think of something to like look into something, okay? And that got me thinking. So back at the beginning of the video, I started with the whole Mesoamerican ball game, like that, okay, with the whole rubber ball, and it got me thinking of like what other unique balls I can actually represent into that with being glass. And I thought maybe like a crystal ball could be the best thing, which crystal balls have very unique ties to like wizards, magic, and all that kind of stuff. And Nami herself has basically even stated to be like a witch who studies magic and stuff like that. Not to mention she was trained by Herodus, who sort of got that like wizard vibe going on like that. So yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. Okay, so crystal balls have been used in fortune telling, all right? They've also been used in divination, all right? And divination is the thing I want to point out here to really draw a connection to something, okay? So some interesting things pointed here is to actually bring back the morning glory, okay? So the morning glory has a very unique connection here to really go over, okay? So sometimes with divinations across different worlds, some people in divination have actually used like hallucinogen plants to actually make visions come true, okay? So visions derived from hallucinogens were used as a form of divination. A common hallucinogen plant used in divination is morning glory, okay? So there's one unique connection we can draw here, the fact that morning glory itself have actually been used to form in divination, to form illusions and visions for people. And maybe one aspect we can actually look into this is the idea of how I presented with the Awakening, with the whole paint on glass animations, where they're now able to like make the idea of the vision itself. They're able to like create their own glass. They're able to make their own unique vision, their own unique creation. And while we're on the topic of it, it's like that, I want to bring up the Mesopotamian divination itself, which is basically states to use divinatory techniques included in setting the stars, meteorites, weather, and the calendar. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get into the final part and officially end the video, okay? So, we all know how Nami has ties to Sweden, like that. Or basically, we know that Oda basically chose Nami's nationality in the real world to be Sweden, right? And I've actually mentioned before that when you look at when you take the two color spreads where Oda drew Nami as a giant, where all the sprites are eating ice cream, and he chose Nami as a giant here, I pointed out the very interesting thing here is that when you actually translate ice cream into, or when you actually look up ice cream in Sweden, you actually get the word glass. Now, when you actually take glass itself, you need to be very ideal of like the two inspirations, right? So in Sweden, in GLASS would be ice cream, right? But GLAS would just be glass itself, as in the actual material or glass itself, okay? But I thought it'd be very interesting here because it draws more of like an easier connection in that regards, okay? And the idea I want to point here is that there are actually three things that I thought were very interesting in itself when you actually look up Sweden's Sweden as well, because there is something very interesting that I didn't think I actually found before, and it's something that completely blows my mind. And believe me, you are going to be shocked when you actually learn what I've discovered. Okay, so here are a couple things in Sweden that I think are very interesting that could be very good ties to Nami and glass itself. Something very, very unique. Right? So in Sweden, there is a place called the Kingdom of Crystal, okay? Which in Swedish, you would basically translate that as Glasriket, the Glass Realm, right? Is a geographical area containing a total of 14 glassworks and the municipalities of Amaboda, Njablo, Opedivich, and Lessebo. I do apologize if I'm pronouncing these wrong. I do apologize. They're all located in southern Sweden, all right? The Kingdom of Crystal is known for its hand-blown glass with a continuous story since 1742. The glassworks have become a culture of Sweden. And not to mention here, there is another unique thing to point out here, that there is actually a place called the National School of Glass, which is an educational center focused on glass arts, design, and entrepreneurship in the field of glass, okay? The school was originally located in Orfors next to the Orfors Glassworks, but is now located in Nyabro. Nyabro calls itself the city within the Kingdom of Crystal, okay? Nyabro is also the home to the Nyabro Vikings and Ice Copy Club. And the place itself, the Kingdom of Crystal, the word crystal has very unique ties to the inspiration of glass, to ice itself, right? Crystal is basically, gets its name derived from glass, right? Now, some cultures might have their inspirations named differently like that, but I thought that'd be very interesting to actually throw in here, okay? And not to mention is that I've actually seen from other, well, not YouTubers like that, but I saw like on a Twitter post before and like that, that someone actually mentioned that they brought up that the original idea for the Strong World movie that Oda was going to write, it was going to have like a connection to Nami's home kingdom and like that, which the basic premise of it was supposed to be the search for the Four Crystals, okay? Which really in itself is a very unique thing, is that, wait, could it be possible that Oda actually knew about this and that Oda was actually going to tie in the whole idea of like a crystal empire, an actual crystal kingdom itself? That would be completely mind-blowing, right? I mean, I gotta tell you, like, a place in Sweden known as the Kingdom of Crystal, which is known for its glass making and like that, to have like a really geographical area like that spans over different locations, and not to mention there is a place called the National School of Glass, which is actually focused on an educational center on actually teaching glass arts and glass design and like that. And all this is in Sweden, the place that Oda chose to represent for Nami's nationality in the world. That is something very unique in itself and something mind-blowing, alright? So, I mean, just alone, that is probably the biggest thing and to really draw in something with Nami, okay? So, hey, that's just on that and like that, but all in favor, I thought that was very unique, very interesting, and you know what, I actually like it. So, hey, leave a comment down below on what you think of what you just learned like that. If you knew about it, tell me. Hey, if you've actually been there, tell me what it's like, right? What's the whole idea of this whole Kingdom of Crystal actually like? I know it's not an actual castle itself and like that. I know it's just like a geographical area and like that with many different glassworks and like that. But and I have like read online like that it's basically stated to be a very unique tourist population whenever people travel there and like that. So hey, if anyone's actually been there, feel free to tell me what it's actually like and what you think of it and like that. So hey, that will do it for this video and like that. I appreciate you guys listening with me and like that and following along. I do apologize if there was any mispronunciations I made on some things I was communicating with, but overall, this is all I really have. Once again, I would recommend people go check out Euron's video on everything he connects with the sun and the rubber and like that. I know I didn't really go into like 100% aspects on everything, but I just wanted to actually throw in some unique things and thought some things could be very interesting, and probably really one of the best ways to really draw a connection with like the whole moon itself is also look up some things with the sun. So paralleling that just seems to make sense in that regards and like that. I mean, I guess one idea that I thought to really draw a connection with like glass and the moon and like that is, I mentioned before that I went with glass because I felt like glass had more of a mythical vibe to it. It just made more sense in that regards. Alright, which really I want to stick with that, okay? And the best way I sort of chose to go with glass is the idea of like how both glass can have like a reflecting connection itself. However, glass can do other things besides just reflect, right? It can sometimes like transmit it. It can basically transmit it. It can basically like break or shatter the light itself and stuff like that. So just like how the moon reflects the light of the sun, glass can also do this as well. And just like glass itself, has a very unique thing where it can even cast a shadow. Which well, I guess the moon. I guess it's hard to tell the moon can cast a shadow and like that, but I guess you can say it can cast a shadow. Especially when it actually covers the sun itself. For a period of time, which I guess is a way to describe like how dark can come in. Which, hey, I'm not an expert on this and like that. I'm just sort of like talking, just talking, all right? I'm just trying to communicate and just basically talk with you guys. So that will do it for the video. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Clif, and once again, you all have a great day. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit notification bells, hit the like button, do whatever you want, all right?